right, well, great to see you again. Hope you're all staying safe and well. And I hope you all had fun making the, what did we make last week? The gnocchi. Did anyone have a go at making the gnocchi? A couple of you, fantastic, brilliant. Right, so what we're going to do today is we're going to do a, what the French call galette, which is a very posh, basically turned over pastry tart, or a very simple tart. Now today, talking about tarts, today I've got Dave working with me. Now Dave and I have known each other for how long?
Too long, 20 years.
20 odd years. Dave's actually the number 2 here, and he is fantastic. He keeps me out of all sorts of trouble, and he magnificently puts up with me as well. So today what we're going to be doing is, as I said, we'll go through making what we're calling a galette, which is a free-form tart or a pie without a lid. Call it what you want. So we're going to start off with the pastry. So now what we've done, if you haven't already got the recipes, you can get them via Karen in admin. She'll through to you. If you've got the recipes, great. One of the things about making pastry, one of the things about making pastry is keep it really, really cold. So we've had the flour in the fridge, we've got the butter in the fridge, and we've used a little bit of ice water. And what that does, it stops the fat from splitting and making it greasy rather than absorbent. Okay? So what we're doing here is literally we've got so I mean very simply, Dave's got flour and butter in there. We've diced the butter up into about kind of that kind of size. So that, and what he's doing, he's gonna wipe the butter across the flour so we get sheets of butter, and that kind of really makes the pastry a bit more light and fluffy without making it flaky pastry. Now there are 101 ways to make pastry. This is just one recipe that works really nicely. If you don't have time, patience, or the want to make pastry, by all means go and buy some sheets of pastry as well. A brand that I really, really recommend, because it is an excellent product, is a brand called Carême. They're out of South Australia, and they're little kind of rectangular packets similar to things like phyllo pastry. So look for that sort of size, but it's got Carême on it, and they've got flaky pastry, we've got shortcrust pastry. You can make this with whatever you want, okay? So it's really, so it's really easy to make. Or I'd say if you want to buy it. If not, the Finder stuff is fine, but a really good pastry is Carême. So what we're doing here, so literally, and as well, if you don't want to mix it by hand and get that wiping technique, which will give you a nice thin bits of, so literally all you're doing is with the butter, you're making it kind of like a flat sheet, like that. Okay. And as the butter basically fries in the pastry in thin layers, and you get, and like I say, you get the layer, which is fantastic. Okay. So Dave will now put the ice water in and form a dough. So actually, I'll do that. Yeah. I'll make the dough, and what Dave's going to do is the filling. Now, the filling that we're doing this time around is a kind of a leafy green filling. So we're going to start off with, so what we've got here is we've got kale, we've got beetroot tops, we've got spinach, we've even got some lettuce in here. Or if you want to get a lot of product, get some silver beet. But quite literally, this, which is a full kind of bowl, and you can even take more, is going to take, is the volume you need. So if you go down Coles, you know those packets of salad mix you can get, the spinach mix. You're looking at about, I'm guessing, 4 to 5 of them once it's wilted down. If you want to make straight spinach, or if you want to look at something like silver beet, a couple of bunches of silver beet is fine. Okay, so like I said, from here, we've got the pastry mixed in, and we're literally just going to put the ice water in, and a little bit of time. Now we measured this out for the recipe. So I'm literally just with 3 fingers bringing it together because I'm trying to keep the palms of my hand clean. Definitely take a bit more water. So it's a lot easier. Remember, it's a lot easier to put water in than it is to take water out. So start to bring it together. Now I don't want to knead this at all, but I do want to just. So I'm bringing it together rather than kneading it together. So I'm going to put that on the desk. As you can see, it's still a bit. It's still lumpy and it's not come together a bit. So from here, I'm going to push it together. Okay, so I'm really not working the gluten in the flour. So when people say, don't work the, don't knead the dough, what they're trying to avoid you to do is creating gluten in the flour. So what happens is with the flour, you've got your, if you get scientific about it, your gluten strands are all like this, and then when you knead it, they'll go all wonky and all tough like this, and then as you rest it, they come out again, but they won't always return. They won't go to the full flatness, okay, or the full linear stuff. So they'll all stay a bit, and that's where you get your chewy pastry from. So if you can, when you're putting it together, if you can get it just like that, it will relax back to linear molecules. That will make it more tender. Okay. So literally, what I've done here is I've pulled it together, and what I like to do is press it down so it's nice and flat, and I'm kind of putting the edges together, and I've got a thing like this now. Okay, so I've got a thick, rough pastry disc, and the reason I press it down is that we're going to put this in the fridge for about, ideally, overnight, but if not, kind of at best 3 to 4 hours. It's fantastic, and what that does, that allows the relaxing of the gluten strands, which is what I'm telling you about. So the reason you roll it, press it down like this, is that when you pull out the fridge, it's a lot easier to roll. Okay, and you're not working hard on it. So we'll just wrap that up in wrapper. Put that in the fridge. And what we'll do now, that goes in the fridge. So that's the first part of the pastry constructed, okay? So what Dave's doing now is literally, he's got a pan hot, he's got some olive oil in the pan, he's fried off his onions, and so they've gone kind of soft and started to go golden brown, not caramelized like a hot dog, but just gently golden brown, a little bit of salt in there, and then he's fried off some parsley. The frying off of the parsley at this stage is nice because it accentuates the parsley flavour. Okay, so it takes away the acidity from the onions. Then from there, he's just literally putting all the mixed leaves in. Now, a tip with the mixed leaves, obviously you need to wash them. When you wash them, don't make sure that they're bone dry, because when you put them in the pan, the liquid that's left on the leaves will kind of help steam the leaves and cook them. Okay, so what you're trying to do is get to a stage where everything is kind of soft and cooked. Okay, so I've done it. Can you actually see Dave doing this, or are we just pretending back here? Yeah, I can see back there. Beautiful. Yeah, no, that's it. Oh, zoom. Look at that. Zoom buttons. I'll come around here. So what Dave's doing is now, okay, you want to tell it? Yeah. He's cooking it all down so it's wilted, and we'll have a quick look at it. And then once it's kind of wilted down, he's going to season it: salt, pepper, nutmeg. Okay, and taste it. If it tastes nice, you're on the right path. Okay, but you add all that once it's wilted down. Okay, and then from there, what happens? Let me just write down the board. We're going to use this again in a second. So how are we going, Dave? Yeah. So what we're basically doing, if you can see that, well, we've got the onions in there, all the leaves. You see, that's still crunchy, so that's still crunchy. That needs to be sweated down. But what will happen is, as you cook it more, they'll all wilt. They'll go nice to a nice kind of solid mass, if you like. And then what you do is you take it out of the pan and you put it in a colander just to let the excess juice drain out. Okay, and then you put it in the fridge to cool it down. And what we've done this earlier. Okay, so that's what you're actually going to end up with. So this has been cooked. It's been drained or just the water squeezed out just through a colander, and we've cooled it down. Nothing else other than seasoning. Okay, and then what we do is now time for the pastry. So we're pretending that we've let the pastry rest for 3 to 4 hours, ideally overnight. We've actually rested this overnight. I made this yesterday, and the spinach or the green mix I cooked earlier. Okay, so what we're going to do from here is we've now got, I've got the pastry. And what I've actually done is I don't think you need to know how to roll out pastry, so I've rolled some out. But what I did, which I find really helpful, it's a really good hack, I actually rolled it out on greaseproof paper. And this will become more evident as we go along. Okay, so if we roll it out to, what's that, about 2 to 3 millimeters thick. Okay, and it's about that big. Okay, and because it's in the fridge, it lets me do that. If it gets too soft, it just means it's warming up, pop it back in the fridge. Okay, so to make the galette, the size that we're using, I've got a standard pizza tray, and I'm going to put, make a mark, and with a blunt knife, because I want to cut the pastry, not the greaseproof paper. I'm literally just going to take the small ring, make a ring of pastry like this. Now with this, obviously you've got some excess pastry here. A little tip with this is don't scrunch it up into a ball, because again, all those monocles are then doing that. So what we would do, and what I would do, is I would just really quickly chop it up into its same, see how I've rolled that out and put that all together. So it's all the same. I squeeze that down, and that then has had no more work to it than the original pastry. I can roll that out again and use it again for a pastry lid, or tarts, or little cheese straws, anything like that. So I'm going to save that and use that for later. Right. Meanwhile, back to the main event. So from here, I've now got a nice ring. I'm going to cook it on this tray. So I've got a nice ring of pastry, and I've got my filling ready. And literally, I'm just going to work from the centre outwards, because the volume of your mixture will dictate how big your pie is going to be. Okay, and we've got quite a nice bit here. And obviously don't skimp on the filling. I'm making this nice and tall, but see how I'm leaving about 3 centimetres of pastry left over. Now I'm trying to get this reasonably kind of level as well, so it all cooks the same. I've also got my oven on at 180 degrees, and that's fan forced. Okay. If you've got a pizza stone, use a pizza stone, because this is you know, the real skill here is to try and cook the underneath of the pastry. Okay, so we really want to cook the bottom. So if you come and have a look at this, I don't know if you can see that, but that's kind of a big slab of filling, if you like, put onto the pastry. It's kind of neat, and I've got that about that kind of high, so about some depth, about thumb depth. So from here, all I'm going to do, all I'm going to do now is fold the pastry over. So I'll grab one end, fold it, and then fold it back on itself, and fold it back on itself, and fold it back on itself. And one of the good things about leaving it on the pastry now is that I can turn it round, fold it back on itself, fold it back on itself. And again, the paper's doing the work for me. I'm not walking around the table, folding it back, folding it back, folding it back, pushing it down. Folding it back, pushing it down, folding it back, pushing it down, folding it back, pushing it down. Now that's kind of a fairly basic one. If you don't have time for that, you can just push it all in. Doesn't really matter, okay? So from here, I've then got egg wash, okay? Now, a little tip about egg wash. If you use pure egg yolk, maybe just turn me up a bit so I can take a see. That's it. If you use pure egg yolk, you will get a more glazed and more deeper golden brown glaze. It's quite all right to use whole eggs and even thin it down with a bit of milk. That saves on expense. But so what I've done is I've just got a little bit. I've got egg yolk, pure egg yolk, and I'm going to glaze the pastry all over. And with this one, again, an effective glaze. You've got to think about babies' bums. You want the glaze to go in every nook and cranny, just like you would talcum powder. Okay? Well, you're not allowed to use talcum powder. It actually kills everyone. But so you really glaze that well. Okay, like so. Okay. So every kind of nook and cranny like that. Now also where the folds are, make sure that they press down. Like that. Nice. Now for the restaurant, what I would do if I was serving this or for functions, I would now put that back in the fridge and I would let the glaze set. Basically dry out a bit. And then what I would do is I'd put another layer on top of that. Okay? So you get a double layer of glaze. So again, it's you're now seeing it to a deep gloss and a deep kind of mahogany sort of look. Now from here, literally, again another reason to use the pastry so that you can move it around more easily. And I'm now just going to trim the pastry up because I don't need all that going in the oven. Like so. Now, this is where we are going to have to use our imagination a little bit. Okay, so I would put that now in a fan-forced oven for about 15 to 20 minutes until it's starting to go beautifully golden brown. Okay, okay? So that's my kind of end oven product. All right. About 15 minutes into cooking, when it's kind of looking golden brown on the outside, but you examine the edges, if you like, and it's still a little bit raw, and I don't have the ability to do this, you would then put, that's where you put your mascarpone and your comté in. Now literally with the mascarpone, you find little holes and you just drop it in, not now, but in 15 minutes time. Just little dots, like so. Okay, and I'm going to put about 5 pieces of mascarpone. So this is the flavour. Now there's some kitchen rules. Fat equals flavour, garlic equals flavour, salt equals flavour. Oh, sugar. That would make the taste food taste nice. So there's your fat content on there. Okay. Now I'm just going to take that off again. We will actually use this later on. And then from there as well, I will literally break some of it. Yeah. So again, this is my trusty microphone, and I will literally, I think on the recipe I've said, just try and get it on the green pack. So literally, you just grate parmesan all over it, like this, okay? And again, that's not now, that's in 15 minutes time when it's 3/4 cooked. Think about 3/4 cooked, and that's when you start putting your fat in. You put it on now, the fat will overcook, split, and run away, and the cheese will probably get burnt or go too brown. But you pop that in the oven. So what we're going to do now, this is real, showing me an old English lad, in true Blue Peter style, if anyone knows what I'm talking about there. We made this one a little bit earlier. So this is your end product, okay? So you can see how it's a nice deep glaze. You can see how, if you look carefully in here, I've still got pools of the creme fraiche, or sour cream, or mascarpone, it doesn't really matter which one. And then on top, I love the cheese Comte. If you don't have Comte, but you've got, I know, I can't say cool, can I? Tasty, that's fine, okay? But Comte, which is a beautiful, beautiful cooking cheese, it does have an elastic stringiness to it. I've also got the Parmesan in there, and I've got the mascarpone. So I've got 3 varieties of fat, and fat equals flavour, okay? So that's lovely. So from here, through that, and what you'll notice, how to check it, is you cook underneath, and you see that the pastry's cooked. I don't know if you can see that, but the pastry's cooked. And literally, I hung onto the tray of paper, on your plate. Now this can be eaten either straight away, or you can save it for later. And then just run your knife through it and salt. And as you can see, I'm going to comfortably get 8 portions out of this. When it comes out the oven, just leave it for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then that way everything settles down again. And if you put a knife through it straight away, you're going to start tearing things. If you let it cool down and just settle and refine itself, you'll get nice. Your knife will cut through it rather than just destroying it and crushing it. Like so. And then what you've got there is a beautiful spinach and Comte, mascarpone, onions, caramelised sweet onions, and that's just pure deliciousness. And what I find, now like most blokes, I like my meat. I find it's a really substantial, fulfilling and filling meal. Really good. So I actually started cooking this and thinking, yeah, that's actually really good. I like this. So I eat that a lot myself. However, once you've mastered the leafy green one, what you can move on to is things like if you roasted some pumpkin off really slowly, like we did last week for the gnocchi, just in the skin, really, really slowly. And what you do is you mush it up with some roasted red onions and blue cheese, because you've got to get that, the pumpkin's really sweet, so you want that saltiness of blue cheese. If you're not a fan of blue cheese, maybe think of some olives. Build that like you did the spinach, and then add the fat, and that is a lovely flavour. Again, mushrooms. Now, I've kind of, that's kind of it. Has anybody questioned?